So here we are back in PaintShop Pro. Let's create a new image. And we're going to change the dimensions a bit this time. So last time we had a height and width of 512 by 512, which made sense because the clock face is square. The hand, though, isn't square, it's long and thin. So we need to change the width to something smaller. Width, let's go for 32. And the height, well, the height was actually more or less the same as the height of the clock face, so we could leave it at 512, but I'm going to change it down to 256. In other words, I'm going to half the height, and I'll explain why I'm doing that later on. It's a bit of a trick. You'll notice that the values we've chosen, 32, 256 and 512 for the clock face, are all powers of 2. Second Life likes images, likes textures that are powers of 2, and in fact if you present it with an image size that's not a power of 2, it'll squash it up into a size that's a power of 2, which can sometimes distort the image and make it look a bit odd. So basically, if you can, it's best to stick to powers of 2 to start with. So that's why we've done that. The other thing we're going to do is click this transparent box, and I'll explain why shortly. So let's just have a look at what we got. So it's a long, thin image. I'm going to zoom it in a bit so we can see it more easily, and drag the border out so we can work with the edges. This white and grey background here represents nothingness. It just means there's nothing there at all, and we click that transparent checkbox at the start, and that's why it's doing this. And the reason for doing that is pretty obvious. We want half of our hand to be see-through, as we discussed, and therefore we need the whole background to start as see-through to start with. So we're going to start with nothing at all. What we need, though, to draw the hand, I'm going to use just a simple arrow shape for our hand. So I need to use the pen tool. I'm going to choose the straight line mode. I'm going to change my line style to use an arrow shape, and I'm going to increase the width to 20 so that it's nice and visible. So if I draw that now by dragging from the bottom upwards, it looks a bit odd really, because the arrowhead is huge. So what we need to do is reduce the size of that arrowhead, and we can do that by choosing the line style option again and choosing custom. We then get an option to use different segment caps. The cap is the arrow at the end. So if I choose that option, the last cap is the one we've got. In fact, in our case we only have one cap, which is the last cap. So if I choose the size option on that last cap, it's currently set to 4 and 8, so let's keep the dimensions the same and just change it to 1 and 2 rather than 4 and 8. And you can see it's a lot smaller, and when we save it, it fits a lot better, so that's pretty cool. So let's increase that a little bit. Yeah, that's not bad. So we can also just make sure it's perfectly centered on the canvas. Alright, so now it's 256 pixels high, as we saw. We want it to be 512, so I'm going to go into Image, Canvas Size, and change that 32256 to 32512. And it's now twice the height. Now you may be wondering to yourself, why on earth did you bother to do that? Why not just create it at 512 to start with? Well, as I said, it's a bit of a trick. What it means is we know that our arrow is exactly half the height of this image now, which is useful. I mean, you could do it other ways, I'm sure, but that way works for me. And I just need to make sure it's nicely on the top. Then we can position it left and right. And there we are, we're almost ready to go. Just before we save this image away, there are a couple of other steps we need to take. And I just need to explain briefly a little bit about image files to explain what we're going to do. Image files typically have 3 channels in them, red, green and blue. And you can mix these 3 channels with each other to create any other colour, which is how the images work. And that's fine for most images. For some images though, you want to define a transparent background, or parts of the image that can be seen through, which is what we want in our case, obviously. For those image files you need a 4th channel called the alpha channel, and that's the channel that defines which bits of the images can be seen through and which bits can't be seen through. And in order to define an alpha channel, you need to set up something called a mask. So let's just walk through those steps. There's 2 steps, one to create a mask and 2 to create an alpha channel from the mask, and hopefully it'll become more clear. So the first step is to go into layers and create a new mask layer from the image. And we have some options to choose from. We're going to choose source opacity. So what that means is it'll look at the image we've got here and say any part of it that's opaque, in other words can't be seen through, like this the black part we've got, create a mask from that. And that's exactly what we want to do, so I'm going to say OK. and it puts a mask in the right hand side here. Now that by itself is not enough. We need to save that mask to the alpha channel. In other words, use that to define what the alpha channel is. So the final step is choose layers, load save mask to alpha channel. Gives you a preview of what it's going to look like. The black bits are the see-through bits and the white bits are the opaque bits, which actually looks perfect. So I'm going to save that. And now we're ready to go. So we just need to save that away now in a format that Second Life can use. So let's choose File, Save As. And the image format we want is this TGA file, True Vision Targa file, which is the format that supports that fourth alpha channel. So if you saved it as a JPEG or a bitmap, which Second Life can read, you wouldn't get the alpha channel, which means the image would have no transparent pieces to it, and it would just have the black arrow on a white background, which obviously is not what we want. So we need to save it as a TGA file. Let's give it a better name than Image 11. We'll call it Clock Hand. It'll warn me that we're going to lose some detail on the right hand side here, and only one alpha channel will be saved. All that is fine, no problem, so we just say yes. Now we can go into Second Life and import it.